In this video, we'll take a tour of the Project panel and the Project Flowchart panel. The Project panel contains folders which contain footage items. If we expand one of the folders by clicking the triangle next to its name, we can see the various footage items. To resize the Project panel, drag on its edge, and here we can see that each footage item has several columns that give information about it. If you want to see additional information about a footage item, right-click on the column header, that's Control-click on macOS, and choose to show another column, such as duration. You can sort items by clicking the column header, and you can filter items by typing in the search field. I'll type FLV, and I only see footage items that have FLV in their names, or elsewhere in the columns. Here we see that FLV is the file name extension for this file. I'll click the X in the search field to clear the search. You can enter comments for footage items by clicking in an empty area in the comment column and typing. Hit Enter on the main keyboard to stop text entry. If you want to rename a footage item, you can click, hit Enter on the main keyboard, and begin typing a new name. And hit Enter on the main keyboard to exit text entry. When an item is selected in the project panel, in this area up here, you can see a thumbnail image and information about the item. Let's select another item by going into the footage folder and selecting a movie. Here we see its thumbnail and the audio waveform indicating that it has audio. We can see its pixel dimensions, its pixel aspect ratio, its duration, its frame rate, its color depth, its encoding type, and information about its audio. Also, you can see how many times it's been used by clicking this triangle. This footage item is not used anywhere in this project. If we select instead this footage item, we can see that it's used one time. If we click the triangle, we can see where it's used. And by clicking this, we go down to the layer that the footage item is the source for. The project panel, like every panel, has a panel menu, this icon here. If you click it, you open the panel menu. And from here, we can choose to open the project settings, just like we can from the file menu, and we can choose which columns to show. Across the bottom of the project panel, we have several buttons. I'll select an item, and then click this button, Interpret Footage, which brings up the Interpret Footage dialog box. In the Interpret Footage dialog box, we can tell After Effects how to interpret various aspects of the footage, including what frame rate to assume for the file, what starting time code, what its field order is, what its pixel aspect ratio is, and how many times to loop it, as well as color management information. We can also create a new folder. We can create a new composition. If you click the New Composition button, you can manually enter composition settings. I'll cancel here. A more convenient way to create a composition is very often to create a composition with settings that match those of a footage item. You can do that in a couple of ways, one of which is to drag the footage item down to the New Composition button. But another way, which is often even more convenient, is to select the footage item and right-click or Control-click on macOS and choose New Comp from Selection. And now this new composition has a duration and pixel dimensions, as well as other settings that match those of the footage item. You can change the color depth for a project by Alt-clicking or Option-clicking on macOS on the color depth button. So now it's set to 8 BPC for 8 bits per channel. If I Alt-click once, it's 16 BPC. If I Alt-click again, it's 32 BPC. If I Alt-click again, it's back to 8 BPC. If I click this button without using the Alt key, it opens the Project Settings dialog box, from which I can also choose the color bit depth, as well as many other settings. And finally, if I want to delete an item, I can select it, or even select multiple, and click the Delete button, and acknowledge the deletion. If you want to get a visual representation of your project, click the Project Flowchart button here. I'll give us a little bit more room to see this by dragging on this edge. And here I can see a single node for the future section composition. If I click this plus sign, it expands, and we can see the various layers and footage items that feed into this composition. So that's a quick tour of the project panel and the project flowchart panel. You use the project panel to organize and manage footage, and you use the flowchart panel to get a visual representation of your compositions.